Yeah, we all know trading NQ is not a game, it's a battlefield, right? It's specifically designed to exploit the weakest part of our evolutionary psychology. And let's talk about this in more real terms. So, when you're in a trade and NQ turns against you, and it might crash to your stop, or if you're quick enough, you can move your stop. For me, it will crash to my stop fast, and when this happens, I tend to freeze and I'll sit there looking at the big fat red number on the screen. And I start bargaining with the market in a way. I might just jump right back in. But overall, what I'm really thinking at that moment is I just want to get back to break even. And if I keep in this mindset, what happens is I'll change a manageable risk scenario into something catastrophic and it's brutal. And the science says, why do we do this? Because it's called loss aversion, and it's the biological death sentence for traders. If you don't understand the neuroscience behind this, you will never survive NQ. It's just impossible. So you forget beginner advice today. We're going to do a deeper dive into the brain and to kill this impulse forever. You've probably heard of the research of the Nobel Prize where losses hurt twice as much as gains feel good. That's true, but it's incomplete, and we need to understand why it hurts. Neuroimaging studies where they literally look at the brain activity of people making financial decisions and have revealed something critical. When you realize a financial loss, your brain activates the exact same regions involved in processing physical pain and disgust. So you think about that when you're holding a losing trade and your finger is hovering over the close button and your brain is screaming, "Don't touch that, it's going to hurt." You aren't just protecting your ego. You refuse to close that trade or you start revenge trading, you're subconsciously avoiding literal neurological pain. This is why we hold losers and hope they come back. And you're flinching away from the hot stove. This drive to avoid pain leads to the worst decisions a trader can make, and it involves a cognitive glitch called the certainty effect. When you're deep in drawdown, hitting your stop means accepting a certain loss, and the human brain is wired to despise certainty when it involves pain. So even if we're holding a trade and when it's collapsing, it offers a possibility of getting back to even, and that's the trap. Your brain will irrationally overvalue the tiny possibility just to avoid certain pain. This flips your entire risk profile. In that moment of panic, you stop being a disciplined trader and become a desperate gambler degenerate, right? We start averaging down, you widen your stop, you're taking massive risks for the chance to avoid activating the pain matrix. And everyone talks about fight or flight, but when you're trading in Q, there's the third response that's far more dangerous, and it's called the freeze. When that happens, um, it's a feeling that's overwhelming, and basically what's happening in Q is moving really fast, and these 50-point swings can happen in seconds, and your nervous system can't cope. It initiates this shutdown. This is the deer in the headlights feeling. The rational part of your brain, the part that needs to analyze the situation and exit or just whatever, calm down, is completely offline. And what happens is we're biologically paralyzed and compromised. You can't think your way out of this biological freeze. You have to shock your system back online. And we need a circuit breaker, a somatic shock. So the moment that you realize that you're frozen and holding a loser, there's a couple things you can do. Stand up immediately. Here, I'm going to trade this here, switch this to long for, we'll see if this works. So we need to stand up immediately, and we need to push your chair back violently. Just push the chair back. Shake your hands out. This floods your brain with sensory information, signaling that you're mobilizing for action. It breaks that free state. And the other thing you can do is what I call panoramic vision. So we can look away from the chart for a bit, scan the entire room, and because a lot of times when we're in panic, we get very tunnel visioned, and especially when we're looking at that big fat P&L. Research shows that shifting to a panoramic view, soft gaze as I call it, is neurologically linked to a calming response. So it actively tells your brain the immediate threat is over. So once we can break this threat response, we can close the trade and kind of get back to rational thinking. And we need to force the rational brain back online to override this emotional panic. So we can also do this through verbalization. When you feel the urge to start revenge trading or holding the loss past your stop, we must immediately ask ourselves this question. Based on the current market structure, what is the objective? The technical reason for remaining in this trade. Say it out loud. It's non-negotiable. Verbalization forces the engagement of the brain's language centers. It interrupts the emotional death spiral. And if you can't articulate a rational reason, technical reason, besides saying to yourself, I hope it comes back, it's not a rational reason to stay in this trade. You need to execute or exit instantly. No debate. And with practice, it will help you with that. Just like in this trade now. If if it closes on this green, I just close it without thinking about it. So finally, let's look at these what's exponentially worse for NQ traders. So here we go. We'll close this thing out and not worry about it. So it's what's the worst thing we can do is it's a frequency problem, and it's known in research. So I agree a little short here. So it's called myopic loss aversion. The more frequently you evaluate your P&L, so the more intensely we're looking at the numbers, basically of profit going up and down, especially when it's going against you, you're experiencing this intense loss aversion. And if you're staring at the dome or on a 1-minute chart, watching every tick, you're exposing your brain to thousands of perceived losses every hour. And every tick against you jolts your pain matrix, and you're overwhelming your nervous system with noise. So one fix that you can consider is zooming out. Stop watching the 1-minute chart. Of course, I'm on the 30-second, but I trade this like an algo. I'm not, since I'm only trading macros, I don't really care about the P&L per se. I'm just trying to follow my indicators. But anyway, so if you're having problem with this freeze, and we need to move out from the 1-minute chart if watching that P&L is just causing you pain. And you can use different time frames, but the thesis is based on the best approach is using the 15-minute chart. So you should only make your management decisions based on the 15-minute chart, or become like me, just trade like a robot and not really worry about the P&L because you're trading so small with micros. It's not jolting your brain if you get stopped out for a loss. So by forcing yourself to evaluate less frequently, you're reducing the neurological stress, allowing your rational brain to remain in control. So there's one final technique that's a long-term solution, and you need to rewire what your brain considers a reward. You must train your brain to get this dopamine hit from perfect execution regardless of the outcome. So if you had an A execution day, you followed your plan flawlessly, you took your stops without hesitation, but lost money, that's a massive success, and that should be a reward for your behavior. If you made money by luck, by breaking your rules, that is a total failure. You should not reward yourself for that. So by shifting the reward from the P&L to process, you train your brain to crave the discipline. And this is the only way to neutralize loss aversion. Loss aversion isn't just a mental error, it's a deep biological response driven by your brain's pain metrics and freeze state. The NQ will exploit this biology every single day until your account is gone. Now you have elite tools to fight this back. And this is how you move beyond the retail mindset. In the next episode, we tackle how your brain distorts reality, confronts bias, and why you see setups that aren't really there. I call it seeing ghosts. Subscribe now and do the work. I'll see you in the next video.